And so we really do appreciate you joining in. I hope it's going to be educational and that you'll learn something, take away a couple things that maybe you didn't know, but definitely follow up on all the other webinars. We've got them kind of, this webinar, my webinar it's kind of an overview, basic, the world of digital dentistry. We get into some specifics. And then there's other webinars to get into the nitty gritty as far as implant planning, 3D printing, a variety of, implant design, a lot more in detailed things. So we're actually very excited to have you all here today. With us today, we have Dr. Kyle Shank, a dentist who's been using this equipment for quite a long time. He has the Motion 2, which is the big boy from Ahmed Gerbach. At least it used to be until this year, until the Matic came out. But it's a do-all wet-dry machine. He's also using it in his practice, obviously, and into 3D printing with the 5100 from 3D Systems. Pretty heavy user. He's going to be on. So when we do get into materials and technology and things that he's interested in, he might have a couple pearls to add. The chat window will be open in case you have questions. We'll be monitoring that, and we're going to give it a couple more minutes here, and then we're going to get started. Well, actually, it looks like we have everyone who's registered. So great. Again, my name is Chad Crispin. I'm from Aesthetic Professionals. We're going to be talking about the world of digital dentistry today. And let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go through really quickly, just an outline. I'm going to talk really quickly about Aesthetic Professionals. This is our facility in Southern California. We're going to get into a digital overview, go through open and closed systems, image acquisition, which is primarily dental scanners, desktop scanners, and intraoral scanners. Go through some mills, whether they're chairside or more lab-based machines, software, and materials. And at the end, really talk about the nitty-gritty, and that's what I call, as far as this kind of a summarize everything moving forward. Aesthetic Professionals, we are an educational center, a laboratory, a dental distribution center, and a practice. We have two different arenas that hold all hands-on lectures to come in and learn, obviously. We also have a CAD-CAM training center for more hands-on, the presenter in front is actually doing live cases, and then everybody in their own station does the same exact case, designs it, and so forth. Some of our faculty, we thank them for actually being part of Aesthetic Professionals. We're very proud of them. We're also a dental laboratory. Okay, so getting started. This is a workflow that I really enjoy using. It's basically the outline from beginning to end that we're all very familiar with. If you're starting at a dental office, everything usually starts at a dental office. You either go through intraoral scan or a physical impression. You're going to go to the lab. They're going to do the design. They're going to go into the CAM, and then the manufacturing is either going to be printing, dry milling, wet milling, eventually finishing the restoration, then back to the chair for the patient. The STL file. This is kind of where everything started. Back in back in 1987 with 3D Systems. 3D Systems invented the STL file. It's a stereolithography file, map surface geometry. The original ones didn't have any color, but since then they've actually been modified quite over and over, whether they're closed, whether they're open, colors, surface texture, you name it. The important thing to remember is it was invented by 3D Systems back in 1987. He's really kind of the grandfather of the STL file, which we're all very familiar with right now. It's kind of like the Adobe PDF for digital dentistry. What I thought I'd start with was discussing open versus closed systems. What they are is, we have an open system versus a closed system. A closed system, these are some of the closed systems on the right. It's typically a predefined process or workflow which cannot be deviated from. And what I mean by that is it's defined by the manufacturer. They control the entire process from the scanning to milling, the intraoral scanner to design to mill. They also control the materials, and it uses their proprietary software. Advantages. I mean, these closed systems have advantages, and because we're an educational facility here, and we take pride that we're actually a school, I like to really give an unbiased view of, our technology and our materials, because what we use and what we do in the laboratory and chairside, just really give you an unbiased view of what we're doing. It's a proven workflow. I mean, CEREC is the grandfather of chairside milling. Back in, the mid to late 80s, Dr. Crispin, who owns Aesthetic Professionals, was, I think, the fourth CEREC trainer. Yeah, it was back when CEREC was owned by Siemens. He was playing with this equipment back then, and it had some pretty good results. You're getting all your support from one company. If something goes down, if something goes sideways, you make one call. They were first to market, and CEREC really does have the largest network of users in the country as far as chairside milling goes. Some of the disadvantages: you really don't have any control of swapping out this for that, or if you want to change the software, or if you want to change the mill and keep the scanner, you really don't have very much control over that. The materials are controlled by the manufacturer. The software is also, and these tend to be very expensive. The chairside systems, especially CEREC, tend to be at least double some other systems. But you're paying for the history, you're paying for some of the advantages that I said earlier. And this is just my opinion. It restricts innovation. I think when everything is too controlled and you can't mix and match and you can't it does restrict innovation. So you couldn't add software to this and really modify your system yourself. What is an open system? And these are some of the various open systems. Obviously, ExoCAD, Alma Gerbach, Degree of Freedom, CareStream, VHF. The configuration is defined by the end user. And what I mean that is you can pick a mill from one company, a scanner from another company. It's software from a third company, materials, obviously, from various companies, and then you can define what workflow works good for you. Like I said, they generate and receive open STL files. Now, it can generate an STL file, but as you know, there's closed STLs. They're not necessarily open by every manufacturer, and you've also got a wide variety of materials. And like I said, some of the advantages, you can mix and match any system you want. The mill you have might be obsolete in a couple of years, and there's something new that comes out that you want. You can just plug that in and move forward. The expense tends to be, like I said, a half to or less of what some of those chairside designs systems are. This gives you future flexibility, So, like I said, if something comes out in the future that you want to change out, you can. Unlimited materials. That I hate saying unlimited and it does everything, but you'll find a lot of the equipment that we're going to talk about today. When a new material comes out, it doesn't have to be validated. A lot of times you can just plug it into your system and try it, start using it, which is really nice. Some of the disadvantages, it's product specific. Who do I call? I think one of the interesting things about who do I call is very important that you go with a distributor that understands and uses this equipment every day. And I think that's important. And I think it's important because you only have to make one phone call, similar to a CEREC system, or you want someone that actually really understands and can support and train and support you, because even when training's finished, you're still going to have questions, and you need someone who's very knowledgeable. I threw this in, the hybrid open closed system. This is really a system where some things are closed, some things are open. Like some of the manufacturers like Cerac and 3Shape, and they're starting to open up certain parts of their systems while some of them are still closed. So there is kind of this gray area when they say, yeah, our system's open, but you got to be careful when some things are open and then other things are still restricted. And so there's also sometimes a fee for that, which is frustrating. Again, back to our digital workflow. First we're going to start talking about image acquisition. I think you guys are pretty familiar with impressions. Impressions, you go to model, you go to, and then to get that digitally, we use a desktop scanner, and then eventually get to your digital record. For intraoral scan, this would be done more chairside. You would go through an intraoral scanner and then eventually get to your acquisition, your image acquisition of the patient prep. You can see the impression, the model, desktop scan. In engineering, the less steps that you have involved, the more accurate, or at least the chance for accuracy is. And so going as fast as we can to this digital record, really the better, because of the accuracy, in my opinion. Desktop scanners. There is quite a few desktop scanners out there today. These are some of the major ones. Gerbach, Degree of Freedom, 3Shape. Don't forget Medit. They're all very good machines. You have a wide array of entry-level scanners to ultra high def, for example, for Degree of Freedom. 3Shape has something very similar. They have their entry-level scanners up into their more robust, fast scanners. Gerbach, they have two. I think they have the MAP 600, which is their flagship scanner, and then they have more entry-level scanner also. The Degree of Freedom, I like this scanner. It's a Korean-based manufacturer. This is the UHD, the ultra high def. You're looking at 20 seconds for full arch, fully articulated models. They actually worked something very similar, something very different than most intro and desktop scanners. As you can see over here, the plate that it rests the articulated model on is fixed. So what's nice about that? You don't have to rubber band or wax or tie it down to the scanner as the scanner plate moves around and rotates around. The acquisition lenses in the back actually rotate around the articulated model instead of the model rotating around the scanner. It's actually a really nice feature. 5 megapixel camera, 5 micron accuracy, STL, open, white light technology. 2 5 megapixel cameras. They came on really early with impression scanning, and so you can actually put a quad or full arch impression in there to do impression scanning. The desktop scanners, full arch, 24 seconds, fully articulated models, obviously, which is really nice. Their articulators are all obviously world recognized as some of the best articulators in the world. You can do up to 12 dyes at a time. Obviously, color and texture. You can see you can draw an arrow on it and actually pay attention to what you're scanning. The accuracy, strip light, open STL, also will do impressions. I'm going to get into, I am going to play some manufacturers' videos, but some of these are very relevant, and I think they're actually good for education. This first one is going to just give you a feel of what it takes to actually do a scan from beginning to end. And as you can see, Gerbach actually rotates around the cameras, a little different technology. Then you can go in there, do the individual dies. Take a sip of coffee. And then obviously, Dr. Shank, jump in because this is your equipment also, if you had anything to add.
Yeah, not a whole lot to add on this one. Just I guess while it's doing its thing, looking back to something you said earlier about the accuracy of getting to that digital stage as fast as possible. Obviously it depends on making sure you have a good scanner, whether that's obviously a garbage camera, whether it's an intraoral or desktop scanner, end up giving you a garbage result, but with a good quality desktop scanner, either like the one that you're showing there from AG or some of the others, or a good intraoral scanner. Realistically, as long as you're doing the clinical side of things, the accuracy of the fit of the restorations really is pretty incredible compared to taking an impression and dealing with the small amount of distortion there, and then pouring up models and dealing with a little bit of distortion there, and being able to go straight to the digital really makes a tremendous difference.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously, this stuff is very important. You garbage in, garbage out. I don't care if you're starting with a model or with a digital scan. You have to be very careful of how you start. No matter what your level of technical ability is, if you're layering ceramic or what it is, or how great your mill is. If you start with a poor scan, everything else just kind of falls off downhill. You have no control after that.
Exactly, and so the more, again, not to, you don't want to take good care of those steps, but the fewer steps you have in the process, even if you're trying to do great work, every now and again somebody makes a mistake or something goes sideways. So the fewer steps in the process, the better.
Yep, and that's what labs have been begging for years. I need a better impression. Please, doc, I need a better impression. And it's always frustrating for the doctor, right? Because they thought it was good. So anyway, I just thought I'd show just kind of a good, that gives us a good feel of what it takes to scan a full arch. This is the next video was actually talking about impression scanning. Sorry, give me 1 second. Which came on later after obviously this, and it's relatively new within the past maybe year and a half. And this is some doctors are they might not want to invest in a intraoral scanner. They don't want to train their team, whatever the case may be. So you still can do an impression, and I think there are some doctors that are very good at it and they're very consistent. And why change? And we still had a lot of doctors changing over from darkroom, X-rays, way back when. So, but I think it does give them this option, which is nice to do impressions. So you would take the impression normally. This is obviously triple tray. Then you would put it in this holder, and then the holder would get then put into the scanner to scan. Then as you can see, it's scanning the actual, and obviously it's going to turn it inside out, obviously, to make a proper scan, because we're working in the negative, obviously. Then you would take it, drop it into Cerebral Mind, go into the expert mode. You would trim out the relevant information, obviously. And there you go. Do the opposing. And the great thing is it articulates it. I always thought that was the coolest part. So it's pretty cool technology coming from an impression to actual record, usable record. All right, so we're moving on. Okay, so we're right now kind of in this area. We're going through image acquisition. What I thought now we jump into intraoral. This was just IDS this year or last year. Intraoral scanners were everywhere, and at least it seemed like it. Everyone and their brother had one. I think the intraoral scanner market has come or is coming close to maturity. And so what happens when things become mature and the accuracy is unparalleled and we can't get any more accurate, down to microns of accuracy, things just start getting cheaper and faster and easier to use. And I think we're there, or we're going to be there very close. Some of the new guys on the market, shining, the CAREStream here, they came out with the new 3700. It's designed by Porsche. I don't know if anybody cares, but it is designed by Porsche, and et cetera. All the good ones, 3Shape, Medit, Prime Scan, Emerald Scan. There's quite a few choices out there. Like I said, some of the advantages of intraoral from impression. You've been doing this for a long time. You've been taking impressions forever. Your staff is already trained. Some of the disadvantages, and I think we did talk about this already, is bad impression. The patient sitting there with a whole mouthful of, impression material. Where do I store all this stuff? Do I have to store it? Obviously, the cost. But I think cost is really a misnomer if you're just going to be looking at impression material. The real big cost that I see, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Schenk, is when I see, an impression is taken and it's sent to the lab and you temporize them, they have to come back. There's where your big costs are, is chair time. Your loss of chair time, your loss of control. And I think that's really your biggest cost. Yes, the impression material, yes, the triple trays, there's some cost there, but really it's when you have to call your patient and say, look, I need to do a new impression. I got to retemporize. That's when you really have the major costs. It's a great communication tool.
Well, and just the decreased chair time too from your delivery visits. I was working with a doc talking with a guy not too long ago. He's setting aside 60-minute blocks for a single unit crown delivery.
Sure.
With the way that I'm doing mine, a single unit crown delivery shouldn't take more than about 10 minutes.
Right.
And going back to that whole time is money thing, that's 50 minutes for every unit that I'm delivering. That in that amount of time, I could have another patient seated and prep another crown. So the time saving of having restorations fit accurately, and don't need an exorbitant amount of adjustment is extremely valuable.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of tools that you can use chairside even while your patient's still there. You do the prep, and it can tend to be humbling. When you're doing that prep, and the prep that you just did with your loops, hopefully, is now 12 by 12 on a screen right in front of you and the patient. You can see the undercuts, you can see the problems, but what a lot of these scanners do is not only shade matching, which we'll get into, but it's a preparation tool, I think. And what it does show your undercuts. It does show distances from your opposing, which is, you can put it up there, just measure, hey, do I have enough room for, my lab going to call and say, look, we got to do a reduction, we got to do something, this isn't going to fit, while the patient's sitting there. And if you're working close enough with a digital lab, you could send those that intraoral scan directly to the lab. They could give comments, yep, we're good, send the patient home. That kind of communication, that instant communication, is really invaluable. And so that, as a communication tool, I think is really important. Additional steps, storage costs, I think we went into that. Disadvantages, there's a cost to this technology. So you really have to look and see, does it fit into my workflow? Will it pay off? Yes, there's staff training, and you really have to make sure your staff is on board. We've trained a lot of offices, and a lot of times they just kind of fight the system. They've been doing it so long for, the same thing for so long that, they don't really want to learn. And once they get on board, once they're excited about it, once they see the benefits in making their life easier, it just makes the acceptance of this technology a lot better, because it's a new office workflow. This is the kind of thing you're going to be
something that you mentioned too, Chad.
Uh-huh.
Just real quick, going back to your point about the benefits as far as storage space and that sort of thing. One thing that you don't really think about is how often a patient comes in who's fractured a tooth and they have some kind of other appliance that they're wearing in their mouth. I had one not too long ago that the patient came in and fractured the palatal cusp off of one of his upper premolars, and he's wearing a sleep appliance. That's not a cheap appliance to remake for somebody if something doesn't fit. But with using an intraoral scanner, we were able to go in and pull out his scans from when we made the sleep appliance and have the new restoration made to match the shape of the tooth as it was previously, bond that in, and the sleep appliance still fits like it did a week before he broke his tooth. So
wow.
There's a lot of stuff that you end up being able to store that you just never really stored in the past, which initially doesn't sound like that great of a thing, but when you start running into those situations where, gosh, I really wish I had a pre-op model of this because the patient came in already missing half their tooth, now I've got those pre-op models on hand that I can use for whatever it is that we need for that particular case.
Sure. Absolutely. And, in your meet and greet or your hygiene appointment, they can take that scan. And a lot of times, there's a cavity and the patient's like, well, it doesn't hurt. I'm going to put it off. I don't have time. I don't have money. A lot of times what you can also do is, they'll call back a week later to they're in pain, obviously, and you knew that was going to happen. But you can really, because you have that record already digitally, you can actually prepare the temporary, for example, of the compromised tooth even before they come back. I have that ready before they actually sit chairside, which is a lot of fun with some of this technology. This is another communication tool that I think is really valuable. This is what you're seeing on your patient. This is what you're seeing, with a mirror. Yeah, but it's not this detailed. It's the reverse image, which is a whole nother issue that we can talk about. But they don't see all the way in the back, that dark brown tooth, that black tooth, that big hole that you see. And you can show them obviously this, but you can also show them the upper, the lower, rotate around, scan in, zoom in. And as far as, selling these cases, I think it's a really valuable tool. We have like a 70-inch monitor in one of the operatories here, and when they see their mouth that large, they obviously want to start fixing things. This is a graphic. It's actually it's relatively still applicable, but the tip sizes. It's really kind of cool when you start overlaying all the different tip sizes on. Because it's important when you're actually working with a patient. Sometimes elderly, sometimes children. It's tough to get those back molars. So this is interesting. 3M, they came on pretty early. I put them in here. They're not one of the better ones, but they're a little less expensive. They take powder. But they do also have a monthly fee, which is tough. I put this in as kind of just, this is their workflow. Like, it goes from their scanner to the cloud, back down, gets refined. I understand this stuff, and when I first saw this, I was confused by the workflow. Keep the workflow simple. Should go scanner right into your computer, directly into your computer. It just makes your life a lot easier and controllable. 3Shape, obviously one of the best scanners on the market. They've been a powerhouse for a long time. 2 tips, obviously heated tips, direct to STL. I think there is a fee for that. Keep an eye on 3Shape. They tend to be a little more expensive as far as back-end fees, but again, a very good scanner. Color matching, a lot of different features. iTero was purchased by Align. Align was obviously Invisalign. They came on hot and heavy primarily because of Invisalign, in my opinion. Good scanner, does not require powder. I think it's a very good scanner. And again, I keep saying very good scanner because all these scanners are very close to each other. They're almost cousins. The proprietary file format, it depends what system you have. It is opened. They have opened it to mills. It's a little tricky to get out, but you can. CAREStream, very good scanner. This is the 3600. Since then, they've come out with the 3700. There's also a third tip. There's these two, and there's also a pedo tip. Sorry, I didn't have an image of that. Very accurate scanner. Does not require powder, multiple tips, single units to full arch. That was important a year ago because the full arch accuracy was still in question. But I think that argument has gone by the wayside. It is direct to USB, and that is, like I said, that's very important because when you do the scan, it goes right on the desktop of your computer. It doesn't have to go to a cloud, get refined, or what they call it refined, and then sent back, and then maintaining those fees. You just be careful about the monthly and annual fees. It's like renting your equipment, and they will turn it. It just turns off. Implant scanning.
That is one thing I do really like about the CAREStream scanner is that once you buy it, you're done buying stuff. Obviously, there's disposables. Tips do eventually wear out for any scanner, but I don't keep getting hammered with more fees every time I turn around for something. So that's one very nice aspect of that one in particular.
Right, and you do have the option to go in with a monthly fee right now with the CAREStream, or you can opt out. It's a little more expensive, but it's really nice not having those monthly fees forever. This is a video I wanted to share, and this is something that we always talk about. It's implant scanning. How do you do it, and what are the steps? So I thought this is actually a very relevant video to share with you guys. So we'd start by scanning the mouth, obviously, or the full arch that we're going to be doing. Scanning the bite multiple times for accuracy. So the record is obtained. You can see he's missing quite a few teeth in the front. And then you go out, you actually cut out the locations. You put in the scan bodies. Now these scan bodies are by manufacturer, so whatever implant manufacturer you're doing, this is the scan bodies that you want to use. They're based on the size of the implant and the manufacturer. The nice thing about CAREStream is you can see it has an ability to freeze. So it basically froze the one side, and now you can start working on the other side. Why is that nice? Well, I don't want to buy one scan body for every single implant. I can buy multiple. I don't have to buy multiple. I can just scan it, move the scan body, put it in the other location, then scan it, move the other location, scan it, move the other location, scan it. It gives you that flexibility to not have 3 or 4 different scan bodies for every single size, for every single manufacturer you use. And you can see the scan bodies actually give us our X, Y, and Z for the computer. Angulation, depth, size, etc. Go through the refining process. There you go. We have our before, our after, color, high def. And that's done. Then you take that and put it into your design software to design your abutments, or send it off to your lab, and they do it for you. You know, so we're still in the acquisition design part of the lecture. Now we're going to get into software. There's 3 different types of software. I consider 3 different types. There's the CHAIRSIDE, which is really designed for CHAIRSIDE single units, you know, fast and accurate as fast as possible. Dental CAD, this is kind of the world, the laboratory world, but there is quite a few dentists that are in the dental CAD world. I know Dr. Shank uses the full-blown software, where that's pretty much, it does everything and anything. Then there's standalone modules that are also, they're modules that you just don't need base software. It's a very hyper-specific software specifically for one type of purpose. Here's some of the CHAIRSIDE software currently. ExoCAD, Planmeca, Cerac. I think 3Shape just throwing their hat into the ring also. ExoCAD. Anatomic crowns. These are some of the indications. Obviously single copings, frameworks, inlays, onlays, veneers, custom abutments, which is very exciting. Then there's the design software for ExoCAD CHAIRSIDE. So you can add on these 3 modules: the bite splint module, the provisional module, and the True Smile technology module. You would, if you have a CHAIRSIDE mill, it's usually a block mill, so you wouldn't be actually milling these, but you could design them in-house. Provisionals definitely obviously do CHAIRSIDE. The True Smile technology is really nice. I'll get into that pretty soon. It gives you photorealistic images of the teeth and the restorations. You can actually put in the patient's mouth to sell cases. Dentures, standalone module, ExoPlan, and model. These are the things you can use if you have the CHAIRSIDE software. This is
you have that option of printing splints too.
Yes, and you can print. Very good point. Thank you. This is the CHAIRSIDE design, and a little video that we did in-house here. You'd go from an intraoral scan here that's already scanned into the software. I wanted to focus on actually working with the CHAIRSIDE software really quickly. So you open up the CHAIRSIDE software. You would load the scene. Basically, just put the intraoral scan into the CAD software. There's the prep. You click on the margin. It will auto-detect the margin. There you go. The interesting thing about this software, I don't know if you guys know, but it doesn't just propose a tooth that is from a library that you like. It actually takes the dentition on either side of this tooth and basically analyzes it and then finds the dentition or the morphology in a library, then matches it to be something very similar, which is pretty cool. A little bit of AI there as far as thinking. So it puts it through an articulation process. You can see it adapts to the margin that we selected. Finalizes the restoration. You select your material, doing a Vita Dynamic as an example here. Then it puts the block directly on the restoration. If it's a dynamic multi-layer, you can move that block up and down to get different gradient colors, obviously. Then you're done. That's pretty much designing a crown chair side. Very simple. It does give you the option to go into expert mode and everything else, but it's not necessarily needed. Lab software, the dental CAD. There's a lot of players. ExoCAD 3Shape dental wings. Those were some of the three original guys. Obviously, Serac. Alman Gerbach has its own flavor of software, but it's on the ExoCAD platform. 3Shape was original, quick to market. Dental Wings was also too. Since then, I think the last numbers I heard, ExoCAD's gotten around 47% of market share in a very short time, which is pretty big, considering 3Shape and Dental Wings were out so much longer before everybody. So it's definitely become one of the main players, if not the main player in dental software. You basically would start out with the base software in dental CAD. Obviously, anatomical crowns, single copings, frameworks, veneers, inlays, onlays. I think this was very similar to the dental CAD. But what makes it powerful are the add-on modules. And these modules are extremely extensive. I think there was like 12 last time I counted. Obviously, the natural library. You can design abutments, screw retained bridges, bars, jaw motion software. That's something that's relatively new with the Zebras and other digital articulators that are coming out. Night guards, models, Smile Creator. I'll touch on that really quickly very soon. Articulator models, bars, again, CT, temporary crowns. This is really, and then the nice thing is you don't have to buy all of this at once. You can buy the base software and then add on these modules as you go. Or you can buy a bundle and bundle them all together, and it tends to get a little cheaper that way. These are the standalone modules. These are important because if you just want to do dentures, you can just buy dentures and just do dentures, partials, models, and then obviously ExoPlan, which is the surgical guide software. Going to get into crown design. This is with the Alman Gerbach software. He's going to show us how to design a crown real quick. See how quick it is in actual dental CAD software.
In the software, I have just prepared some scan files. You see my little hands, you see the keyboard and the mouse. See what I do with my mouse clicking. I will choose one sheet full of from crown, and after scanning.
So you create the patient record, go into the software,
so first what I do
design software,
I'm loading the scan file.
Load your scan,
and I'm clicking on the margin. So let's go closer.
Mark the margin. You can see it's very similar to the CHAIRSIDE software.
No correction, everything's fine. Then check the insertion direction, that's also fine. Go on with standard parameters.
Your insertion path.
Check here the ground, bottom, center, gap, and so on. Standard parameters. Then in the next step, I will click on the media and vista contact point to add my library too. can, in the next step, adjust it a little. You see my hand to increase with shift to see I want to tilt it or make it in another direction with the control key, and arrange some contact points with my visualization of the intersections. Then in the next click, the adapting of the crown to the margin line, possibility then of adapting occlusal and the approximal contacts and the intersections. After that, clicking on next, then I'm finished. I see my finished part, my finished crown. Let's see how it looks in the true smile mode. So it's a nice thing to have.
There's the true smile I was talking about.
After that, I'm proceeding to the production, continue, and I'm saving my scene anyway, which I have just done before, and then I pass over to the match 2.
Then you would go into the nesting software. This is one of the primary differences with the CHAIRSIDE. The design software is a little more intuitive, but the nesting, you see now we're putting it into a puck or a block. So you actually have to go into a nesting software, where the CHAIRSIDE, you know, like I showed you, the block just gets presented to you.
After that, passing over to the motion software. And in the motion software, you see in the phase of motion software, I'm picking up that crown after the billing calculation and transfer this file to the transfer button on the machine. And then I take my block, my zirconia block, put it in the machine and mill it. And if I want,
and you're ready.
The crown also possible to mill it in Centron. So I choose the machine.
So you can see they're very similar as far as the different, CHAIRSIDE versus the dental CAD. It's just more robust. The dental CAD tends to be, you can get yourself in a little more trouble, but at the same time you have a little more control, a little more flexibility. This is the Exo Plan. I thought I'd touch on this. We just had a webinar on this, and there's going to be some future webinars on the Exo Plan. I'm not really going to get into a lot of detail as far as explaining what to do and how to do it and everything else. I thought I would just make you aware of it. Exo Plan is a standalone module. What it does is it takes the DICOM, the CBCT information, and puts it together with the CT information, so you could actually plan your implants and then plan the surgical guide, design the surgical guide, and fabricate it if that's what you wanted to do. You could design it and send it to a lab. You could design it and send it to your own printer, whatever you want. So it's a DICOM file. We would mesh those files together, design the arches, go through all the different steps with the CT. Here's all your planes. View. Obviously, file these if you're going to find that nerve. Design the crown. We've been talking about crown down for years, right? Design the crown and then place the implant. I mean, it's really here now, and it's exciting. Then we start placing the implant. We choose the implant system. Obviously, you can see the nerve is they make it very apparent what the nerve is. And then you're going to go through these various steps of planning the implant, placing the implant, adjusting it, provide your reports as far as what to do when. Then you get into the surgical guide design portion. It starts with this. You rotate that sleeve, make sure it's accurate, then build the guide, and then pretty much build the guide around it, as you can see. And then depending on how you want to do it, how many windows you want to put in, and that sort of thing, and then you would send it to your printer. It gives you all your surgical protocols and whatnot. It's a pretty slick software, and you can actually do everything in-house, which is nice, which gives you a lot of control. This is a True Smile. Back to the True Smile, you can see it comes in a variety of different shades, colors, whatnot. You can even do a gold restoration if you wanted to. Then you would actually put that into the Smile Design software. The Smile Design software is nice. As you adjust everything on the right-hand side of your screen, it adjusts in real time in the patient's mouth, which is really nice, so you can show them exactly what they're going to be doing, what it's going to look like, your ideas for design, which is a lot of fun. There's a lot of times the lab can do this for you if you didn't want to do this, and then you could just use this presentation software. But actually, it's very intuitive, very simple software you could use yourself. Like I said, the Alma Gerbach software is on the ExoCAD platform, so I just wanted to show you this. if you're working with Ahlmann Gerbach mills and Ahlmann Gerbach's products, we do recommend using Ahlmann Gerbach software. They've dialed everything in. It's a completely open system, but they've guaranteed that workflow and that process, just like CEREC, but it's an open system, which is extremely valuable. I know Dr. Schenk has this software and then uses it every day, obviously, in his practice. And so you can see these modules are very similar: articulator, bar, the MGen software for All-in-X, Splint software, et cetera, et cetera. They're very similar software, but they just have a kind of an Ahlmann Gerbach flavor to them. Next, what I thought I'd talk about really quickly is the dentures. This is the FDS denture software. I'm going to show a short video here, maybe a couple minutes of the process of designing a denture. And dentures are relatively new, and this process is constantly changing. It seems like every 2 weeks with materials, processes, speed, and everything else. So as you can see, all this software starts out with just good acquisition of patient data. That's really important, even before you get into the design of everything. Then you go through and start designing. It gives you a proposal, but you got to tell it a couple of things, obviously. There you go. Do some fine tuning. You have a denture. Now, how you process it, there's about 10 different ways. Right now you can mill the teeth. This video is going to be showing you how to mill the teeth. It obviously doesn't mill every tooth. They're pre-made, and so it's not going to have to mill every tooth. Only the ones that need to be adjusted. Then you would actually mill the base. This is showing you how to mill it out of wax. You can mill it out of acrylic. You could print it. You could do a whole bunch of different things. But this is showing you it mills the teeth for you in the Ahlmann Gerbach mill. It mills the base. And like I said, you can also print the base. You can mill the teeth. You could print the teeth. You could, there's, like I said, about 6 different variations of what you can do for dentures, just depending on your workflow, whether you do a try-in, whether you go straight to dentures, what you're doing. So I'll skip through that. I think you guys got the process of dentures. We're going to jump into mills real quickly here. 5-axis versus 4-axis. XYZ, A and B. Why is that important? Why can't I just get a 4-axis versus a 5-axis? Well, 5-axis is going to give you a lot more, a bigger ability to do more, especially with undercuts, bridges, and bars, longer span bridges, et cetera, et cetera. It gives you that flexibility. I mean, you can do, 80% or so of everything with a 4-axis machine, but at the same time, you just might need that 5th axis, and when you do, it comes in handy. Wet versus dry. Dry is just dry. It's what it sounds like. It just does zirconia, acrylic, PMA, depending on your machine, wax, etc. It doesn't use water or lubricant. It's just a dry machine. Primarily carbide burrs ranging from 0.3 to 2.5. You can also do chrome cobalt, but it's in a dry state like zirconia. Wet machines, just what it sounds like. Again, use of water or lubricant. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because I think you guys all understand what a wet machine does. But that gives you the ability to do disilicates, stuff that's a lot more rigid, titanium, that needs a lubricant, obviously, with it. Carving, I'm not going to show you the video on carving, but what I do want to show you is this. Quadrant parallel grinding is what every machine on the market does currently, except for Amann Girrbach. Amann Girrbach actually patented what's called carving technology. It was really allowed them to go from a single spindle mill and get the speeds of a lot of the really fast chairside machines, because what it does is it mills around the restoration, the unused material falls off, and then it goes in and adds detail to the crown. What quadrant and parallel grinding does, it just goes back and forth, either in the quadrant pattern or the parallel pattern, until all the erroneous material is removed, and then goes back in and does the fine detail. What that does is the carving increases speed, and what also it does is your burr life. Obviously, if your burr's got to go back and forth, to get all the material off, your burrs aren't going to last as longer, and your machine is also working that much longer. The machines are rated by hours of use, and the less amount of hours of use they use, it's just like a car. Obviously, it's going to have a greater longevity. Some of the mills in the market, obviously Roland, Program Mill finally got released. I don't know if it's actually out yet in dental offices yet. I think it might be, but they shelved it for a good year or so. I don't know what the issue was there. And Zycor, VHF, Amann Girrbach, just different mills. Some of the leaders, VHF, Amann Girrbach, obviously. Imes has been around for a while. Ivoclar, relatively new to the mill market. Roland's been around for a while. Started way back, 7 years ago or so, as kind of an entry-level mill with DWX50. We're going to start with Amann Girrbach. This is their 4-axis micro IC. This is what their definition of a chairside mill is. It is a wet process only, 6-tool changer. It does blocks and titanium abutments. Very, very, capable spindle with a 100,000 RPM spindle. Again, block machine. The Micro 4X dry. This is, again, just a dry machine. Just dry machine. This is kind of their entry-level machine to just dry processing. The Micro 5X, same thing, but it is 5X instead of 4X. 6-tool changer, both 71 and 98 millimeter pucks. 100,000 RPM spindle again, but it's got 5X processing. The Motion 2. This was their big boy until the Matic came out for a very long time. This one does everything. 98, 71, blocks, bars, titanium, dentures, you name it. I think the 8 arms, I think it might be 10 or 11 now, but I can tell you a story. When we first bought Amann Girrbach about 7 years ago for our laboratory, it had 2 arms. It had the 71 millimeter and the glass ceramic holder. It only holds 3. Since they've added about 9 different arms to this system, and I'll get into that. Next. VHF has come on really strong. This is a very, very robust chairside machine. What sets them apart from a lot of the other chairside machines is that It does abutments. It does bridges. It does zirconia. It does, like it says here, 38 block materials from 20 different manufacturers. The CAM software has been tested on 800 different prefab titanium abutments, 11 different manufacturers. It's a very robust machine. Another German machine that I think is is going to be one of the forefront for dental chairside moving forward. The nice thing about this is it's completely plug and play. You plug this in and everything you just plug it into the wall on a 110 jack. You don't need external air source. You don't need an external water source. Everything is completely built right in, which makes it very nice. Wi-Fi. There's also a camera in there. You can kind of see that camera. For support, we can actually log directly into that mill and see it milling. Hey, I broke a burr. We can log into that record and replay that video and find out exactly what happened, which makes support pretty cool. If you want to send videos to your patients, so be it, but that's not really what it's for. It does take clear water. It doesn't need a lubricant, so that will cut down in costs. They're touting restorations under 10 minutes. We've actually validated that. It also comes with a 2-year warranty. So again, really excited about this new chairside machine by VHF. They also have what's called the R5. The R5 is probably the kissing cousin to the Motion 2. The only difference is that it has a 10-block holder. Integrated PC, et cetera, et cetera. Very similar to the Z4. It's a little bigger, not much, but you can do 10 discs, 60 blocks, abutments, et cetera, et cetera. You can integrate it with all of the software. Doesn't take a coolant, and it does. This one is a 5-axis, 35-degree angle for 5th axis, and it'll go up to 40 millimeter discs, which is pretty cool. They're touting 3 microns of accuracy. Wow. 3 microns. You guys know what 3 microns is. It's pretty impressive. Titanium milling. This is when you want to do abutments. You're going to be doing abutments for $40, $50, and they're all custom every single time. You design the abutment and then deliver it. The milling times on those are around 9 to 15 minutes. These are the arms I was telling you about, and this is what really makes your mill future-proof for the Amon-Gerbach Motion 2. You can see there's a 3-blank holder, a 12-blank holder, titanium, dentures, a number of different arms available for the Motion 2. What I thought we'd do next, I'm going to go through this relatively quickly, is we're going to get into materials. I'm trying to keep this to an hour, so bear with me. We're a little over time right now, and I understand. TOSA, just a great zirconia power for a number of reasons. Obviously, lots of different zirconia out there, but one thing, get good zirconia. Depending on the refinement and the purity of the zirconia will really be reflected in your restorations. The F code for the shrink rate of the zirconia, extremely important. And you could have cheap zirconia, but it will shrink different every single time. And you'll be blaming the mill and everything else, and it becomes to get very frustrating. Katana, very good multi-layer material. One of the first ones on the market for multi-layer. And then we can get into, I decided to do Amon-Gerbach. Their zirconia, they have the ZI, which is about 1,200 megapascal zirconia, the HT Plus, 1,100 megapascal zirconia, the FX, 700, 750, and that's for your high translucent. You mill this thin enough that you can see the dye right through it. Then there's the FX multi-layer, very do an OA1, A2, A3, A3.5, A4, whatever it is, and it comes out that mill out of the sintering oven with that gradient, which is really nice. Also comes in a block material. There's a new material that is a cousin of the H2 Plus. It's called Gen X, which is actually that 1,100 megapascal material with which is actually has a gradient in it. Block materials, holy moly. These are all the manufacturers that do block materials, and that's why it's important that your mill that can do it. Some of these aren't available in a lot of the systems, but these are some of the manufacturers that actually produce blocks. There's a lot of them out there. Ivoclar. The funny thing is about CEREC, you can't drill a hole. That's why there's a hole in there for implants. I always thought that was funny. I loved adding this as part of the lecture. But you can see all the different materials from Ivoclar, GC. They've got the CERSmart, they've got the GC Initial. Really good materials. More of a mill and polish type of materials, which are really nice. Lucite reinforced materials. Vita's got some great materials. The Vita Suprinity. This is a cousin for the Emax. It's a zirconia reinforced lithium silicate. It is sorry, I just lost my train of thought. The Suprinity is a silicate, but it's reinforced with zirconia, so it's a little stronger. And again, Dr. Schenk, if you have any uses of these materials, if you've used them, some of your favorites, I'd love to hear it. The Glidewell.
The only one that I didn't see on there was Straumann also has their nice blocks. I have used a few of those, and I've gotten pretty good results with them. It's another, if I recall correct, it's a zirconia reinforced lithium silicate. There you go. That's again, it's pre-crystallized, so it's mill it, polish it, and pop it in. So far, the handful of cases I've done with those have turned out rather nice. They're not available in all the shades, so you are a little limited on that at this point. But especially if you're wanting to do same-day stuff with that carving mode on the Motion 2, those things fly right out of there.
Sure. And it's nice, having those mill and polish materials are nice because you just don't have to go through a thermal cycle. These are two of them that we like and have been used. So I'm glad you like it also. That Straumann Nice is actually a really good material. There's also the Celtra Duo, which is another silicate material. Right out of the mouth, you're looking at for the Celtra Duo, you're looking at 250, 280 or so. So some things with some really good support. I think we find you can throw that in a thermal cycle for 5-10 minutes and you get way above Emax strengths, which is nice. But the Straumann's hard and polished right out of the mill, as Dr. Schenk had said. Also, we've got our partial materials. This stuff is relatively new and it's exciting. These polyethyl ketones, there's aromatic ketone polymers. This is just milled. There's no days of waxing it up and casting it and investing it, divesting it. It's just a huge process doing these partials. You can go direct from design to mill, and then apply your teeth, and you're done. They tend to be tooth colored. You don't have that metallic taste in your mouth. Really, really cool materials from Solvay. This material that we're looking at is called the Ultra 360, which is a really cool material. You're going to design things a little different when you get into design. These clasps will be a little thicker than metal, but we haven't had any, as far as complaints as far as patient discomfort because of it or whatnot. If they do break it, you just mill them another one. You already have the file, just mill another one and fabricate yourself, which is really nice. Obviously, there's waxes and splint material, polymethylphthacylate. There's also multi-layer PMMA. You name it. The materials are everywhere. M-Plast, if you want to mill models. I don't recommend tying up my mill for 2 hours to mill a model, but they're extremely accurate. Obviously, wax for dentures, also denture teeth. You name it. The materials just go on and on. Implants. This has always been a bone of contention as far as implants. Are they manufactured by the manufacturer? And every time I did this lecture in Colorado not too long ago at the Prosthodontist Society, and one of the questions were, well, they're not authorized by the manufacturer. Well, I talk about a story where Straumann and Medentika fought for years about Medentika ripping off the Straumann abutment. And so after fighting and Straumann couldn't win because there really is not a lot of patents that they actually really truly possess, except for maybe the bone level Straumann. They just bought Medentika instead. And so they basically now produce knockoff blanks for the entire industry, which is always a fun analogy if you want to think about it. But also if you keep talking about warranties and that kind of thing, read your warranty, because if you really have a good lab, the Straumann will give you the part back, and that's about it. A good lab will actually remanufacture everything for you in case there's a problem. But these are all Type 5 L-grade titanium, really good stuff. again, we're still back in finishing and processing. Printing, I didn't really spend a lot of time with printing, but there's a lot of printers out there. The SLMs with like Formlabs tend to be a little slower. I know Dr. Shank's got a couple scanners or printers. He has the 5100. And which one did you buy, Dr. Shank? What was the other one?
I've got an Asiga Max.
The Asiga. Okay. You had pretty good luck with that? You like it?
So far, yeah, I have. I haven't had it for very long, in all honesty, so my experience is somewhat limited.
Sure.
It is a good example of the benefits and drawbacks of an open versus closed system, because I'm going through that process of figuring out which materials I like in it and which ones I don't think work all that well in it.
Sure.
It's a good little printer, doesn't take up a lot of real estate in the office. Speeds on it is pretty decent. That NextDent printer, though, is frighteningly fast. If you're wanting something that'll pump stuff out quickly, the NextDent 5100 is, without spending $100,000 on something, that NextDent's a fantastic printer.
Right. And remember, at the beginning part of the lecture, I talked about who invented the STL file. Well, that was 3D Systems, and now we can tie that back and make a full circle. 3D Systems came out with a dental mill not too long ago, and they subsequently they purchased a company called NextDent. NextDent controls a good majority of the materials on the 3D printed market today, and so you took one of the grandfathers or the grandfather, a creator of the STL file who's been in 3D printing since the mid to late 80s, and then combined it with one of the best material companies in the world. And I believe it's one of the best combinations in 3D printing currently, as far as experience in manufacturing, and then also material development. There was a new material. A lot of these new long-term or permanent temporary materials are coming out, which are actually very exciting. You can take ceramic material and turn it into permanent restorations, which is really cool. I mean, you're still looking at 120 to 160 megapascals, but it's the permanent restorations are starting to show their ugly heads, and I think it's going to happen fast. Obviously this printer, orthodontic models, crown and bridge models, I can go through it. You probably read my screen already. Surgical guides, splints, night guards, a lot of different applications for 3D printing. And so what I thought I'd do finally, as we end here, I thought I would just go through some of the materials that are available on the market for 3D printing. Surgical guides, denture base, crown and bridge, for investing, casting. These, and you can get into crown and bridge. You can get into temporaries, the temp material, ortho, ortho clear. You got ortho rigid. You've got your tray materials. It just goes on and on. Model. I think there's 4 or 5 different model colors: peach, yellow, gray. It just goes on and on. Another ortho material, obviously. Gingiva, which is nice. The gingiva when you're doing implant models. Some of the more expensive printers, you can actually control the rigidity of your gingiva, but that's not, if you want to stay $10,000, $15,000 in a printer, which is what I recommend as far as getting into printer, which is what the 5100 is. This is really still new technology, and I don't know if I felt comfortable jumping into a $50,000, $100,000 printer, but they are available, and those more inkjet, those really cool printers, you can actually control the density of this gingiva material for your implants. So when you control the emergence profile when you're designing it, you can also define the tissue pressure also depending on the material you're using. So that's interesting. Castable material, again, I like the millable castable, millable not castable materials, but it is available for casting. And then here's the nitty gritty, just to wrap things up. With all of this equipment, when you get into equipment, training is included. Don't let people charge you for it. If you're buying equipment, that training should come with the equipment. Any good distributor, especially us, do in-office training for your team, for you individually. We offer remote training. We offer any kind of remote training after the fact. And because we actually use this equipment every day, I feel that we're actually one of the better distributors. The training, you're going to start with copings, and then you're going to move into, bridges, then you're going to go into abutments, and then you're going to go into, as crazy as you want to do. These machines will pretty much do anything. We're also a school here, so we do have residencies available. But one thing we also do, no other distributor does, is if this machine ever went down, we do backup milling for you, which, because we're a laboratory, your designer got sick, you don't have the time, send it to us, we'll design it, send it back, you mill it, you're out of burrs or material, send it to us, we'll mill it for you, send it back. It's just a great safety net, and sometimes that net is important. When it costs the material, $7 to $10 for zirconia, block material, temporaries, stints, you can see the ROI on a lot of this stuff is pretty quick and important. I don't like to get into ROI because we can manipulate those numbers in any different way to sell anything. So I really like to just give you numbers based on, and that's including maintenance on the machine and burrs, just so you know. Obviously not the cost of the material or the lease, but these numbers are including your burrs and your maintenance, roughly. Okay. And abutments. The abutments are going to run about $40 to $45 for the abutment, and you have a screw, which is like roughly $7 for the screw for your custom titanium abutments. There is maintenance involved, so we recommend 1,000-hour maintenance on most of this equipment, which runs about $3,000, and that's 1,000 hours of milling is a long time, and I'm sure Dr. Shank can attest to that before you actually have to start doing maintenance on it. But I'm sorry I went over.
That definitely does take a while to get there.
Yeah, to get to the 1,000 hours. But I want to thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Dr. Shank, again, it was a pleasure. Thank you for your knowledge. Thank you for joining us today. He works really closely with aesthetic professionals. We value his opinion and his expertise.
My pleasure.
So thank you very much.
Do we have any questions?
I don't see any questions, so maybe that was good. I guess we're going to adjourn the webinar. This webinar will be available. We are recording this, so it will be available, and we will be rebroadcasting this. We'll also make it available to you as a participant. So again, thank you for your time. You guys all be safe out there. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much.